Welcome to the inaugural episode of the Honor the Land podcast. I am Max Loeb. Loeb's Leads here with Chef Zay. Today is July 22nd, Monday, coming to you the day the rookies report for Cleveland Browns training camp. And tomorrow, obviously, the veterans will report. Everything is coming up on us really fast. We appreciate you guys tuning into the first ever episode of the podcast. Zay, how are you doing?
I'm feeling great, and I'm feeling almost a year older as my birthday is slowly upon us. So I'm feeling good, man. How you feeling?
I'm living the dream. Very, very excited for everything to get going. I mean, it's been a long off season since that fateful January day against Houston. It's been a cool off season. Lots of good things have happened, which I'm sure we'll talk about, but it's been a long off season. I'm very excited to get into all of this stuff. I mean, it blows my mind that training camp is tomorrow. Like the veterans will be here tomorrow. Like it's insane to me. I can't believe it.
I am so ready for this year. I've never been, I say this, it seems like for the past 3 years, I've been saying it every year. Like I've never been more ready for the season than this year, but it's because of just the trajectory that we're going. Like every year, there's something else to look forward to. If we went 11-5, if we went 11-6 last year with all the injuries, I don't understand why I see everybody having us going 9-8, and I'm ready to shut everyone up. I'm ready.
I'm with you. I am totally with you. That's like the big talking point for me with all my friends too. Like, especially those who are not Browns fans. They're like, oh, it's all Deshaun Watson. It all hinges on Deshaun Watson. And we'll
Mhm.
talk about Deshaun Watson. It's probably the biggest question mark in training camp. But the reality is, like, they didn't have Deshaun Watson for much of last year when he did play. There were some great games, but there also were some not so great games. And they won. I'd say 11-5. Like, I don't even count that last Bengals game because that
Right.
was like you and I were out there. Like it was
Mhm.
not the Browns that we have seen. And I think that looking at that game and counting it as a loss is kind of tough to do. But they won 11 games last year regardless with a battered and bruised roster at a lot of different positions, but especially offensively where you hope they make the strides this year to become a truly elite team in the eyes of everybody. I think a lot of Browns fans can see what's going on with the team. You can see obviously how good the defense is, but the strides they're making offensively, and you think, okay, like this could be an elite team. I don't think other people see that yet.
They don't see it because of 4. And
Yeah.
until he comes out and, proves everybody wrong, um, they're never going to see it. But the funny thing about it, I think, is that I don't think 4 has to be Houston Texan 4. Now, if we can get Houston Texan 4, I think the sky is the limit. It truly is. We're talking, we could potentially be talking dynasty because then we'd be re-signing all our cornerstone pieces. In my eyes, obviously, dynasty is a little far,
Yes.
I'm putting the cart before the horse, but you get where I'm going with that.
Yes.
But I think if Deshaun Watson can play top 15 quarterback football, we'll be in a very, very good position because this team starts and ends with the defense. And if you can't see that, then you're just looking for reasons not to see it at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll start with Deshaun Watson because he is probably the hottest topic of training camp, the season, off season, whatever it may be. Back at OTAs, back at mandatory minicamp, he was there, he was throwing, but it was an every other day type thing. He would always take a day off, which seemed in line with his rehab. Do we think Deshaun Watson is going to be back 100% come July 24th when they start practicing?
Yes. I think I can even go as far to say is that I think he's may finally be over the mental hurdle
Hmm.
because you not only there were a bunch of mental hurdles for him. Number one, obviously the biggest elephant in the room. But then you mix the fact that the expectation that was set on you with all the money, and then you mix that with the fact that you got injured, and then when you finally getting in the groove, you got injured again. It's like so. I think he's at a spot now where all the pressure's off because you saw this team go out there and perform at the highest ability without you, and you know you can count on these guys. And if you can just plug in what we know Deshaun can do, I think he should be more than 100%. There should be no more excuses this year. I'm all out of cards. I need this number 4 card to work because he's going to truly be the answers to our problems.
Yeah, I agree with almost everything you just said. He is the answer to the problems. Excuses are way far out the window. They could have been out the window last year.
Hmm.
I think the pressure is on now more than ever. It's not to say he can't rise to it, but I do think you look at the strides that this team has made, at least on paper. in the offseason. You look at the young talent, all the players who are on rookie deals, the elephants in the room with the contract extensions. What are you going to do with Amari Cooper? You're going to have to pay JOK, and fingers crossed, my gosh, I hope they do. Hopefully soon. We'll see. But the window, quote unquote, is more open now than it will be down the line. I think the pressure's on now more than ever. But I think Ken Dorsey coming in is going to make life a lot easier for Deshaun Watson. I think partially with the struggles Deshaun Watson had, there were a lot of hurdles, like you talked about, not playing for 2/3 of a season, then coming back and expected to be, this savior of a franchise was unfair. Then last year you look at him playing and he battled injuries. I think people just look at Deshaun Watson and they say, okay, yeah, he was hurt. He was a quarterback who hurt his throwing shoulder. Like that's as significant of an injury you can get for a quarterback.
And the shoulder injury was very, very rare. Throw that in there as well. It's not common that the shoulder injury happened. So
exactly. Yeah. And it was a tough battle. I mean, you saw he rushed back against the Colts, and I think week 7, whenever it was, very clearly rushed back, was not ready, and paid the price a little bit for that. But the comfort, I think, has not been there for Deshaun Watson. And it's probably been a difficult offseason learning a new offense and being in a new scheme. It probably would have been more comfortable if the offensive coordinator did not change hands. But because of Ken Dorsey's history with mobile quarterbacks, because of what we know he can do with guys like Cam Newton, Josh Allen, I feel really comfortable and really confident in Deshaun Watson to rise to whatever pressure is there. But I do think there is a lot of pressure there, especially offensively.
It's funny we talk about the pressure around Deshaun Watson because they were talking about this a lot on the radio about how much pressure there is. And, is there pressure in my eyes? 100%. There's pressure. But I kind of like to relate it to like a water bottle. One of those plain water bottles that you have that you can tie real, real tight. And you're like, oh my God, this thing is going to explode. And then you take the cap off and nothing happens. It's just there. I think Deshaun Watson, yeah, there's pressure there. You can feel it surface. But inside, when I unscrew this cap, he is paid. There's no pressure theoretically when it comes to, I got to go out here and set the world on fire because if I don't, ultimately, how are my kids going to eat? He's set for the rest of his life. So I look at it from the aspect where it's like, I think the pressure that you want your quarterback to have, that's the pressure we feel. You're getting paid $230 million. You need to. But that outside pressure that I think he was feeling year 1, year 2, year 3 while he was here, I think it's such a different pressure now. And he looks more relaxed. He feels more relaxed. His videos feel more relaxed. And you kind of just get the sense where it's like there's a weight lifted off him. And it's almost like, man, if he is in this groove, we may see Deshaun Watson from Houston. And I just think that the pressure that we talk about, what type of pressure? Because ultimately he's paid, man. There can't be that much pressure when you talk about that, unless you're going for legacy, which I think he should go for.
And I think he is. I think he feels that too. But it's a very good point because, off the field, like he is set. Like it's the reason that players want guaranteed money nowadays, right? Absolutely they will go out and they will try their best. I think it's almost dumb to think that players won't, but there's less pressure that if you go out there, maybe you get injured, God forbid anybody gets injured. But if that happens, like your money is guaranteed. If you don't play as well as you have in the past, your money is guaranteed. That is a very good point with the pressure. Another guy who I'm looking at, and as I'm sure a lot of Browns fans are looking at, especially after the viral video of him squatting came out, is Nick Chubb, because that's another guy who again, I also think not a lot of pressure there. Like you come off of a crazy, crazy injury to a knee. Again, as a running back, we talk about all these players, like the worst injury body parts that could happen to these players. Coming back from a significant knee injury, you're a little bit older. How do you manage to find your footing in an offense again? It's really tough, obviously, for a lot of different reasons. But when camp starts, what do we expect to see from Nick Chubb?
Well, when camp starts, something tells me they're going to play this. They're going to do right by Nick Chubb. I think if Nick Chubb comes out and say, hey, I'm ready to go, I don't think they're going to hinder anything against his word. I'm not looking for Nick Chubb to come out here and exceed his injury expectation. If it was up to me personally, I'm very content with the guys that we have leading the way for a month, need be. I think Deontay Foreman has proven that he can carry a workload. Jerome Ford has proven more than enough that he's capable of running this offense. And then you obviously got Pierre Strong in the mix as well, who they really love. I think that we are fine. Do not rush it. Let him rehab it the way we know he's a freak. 8 months after, and you're squatting almost
Yeah,
600 pounds.
that's crazy.
That tells me he's more closer to being ready than not, in my opinion.
Mm.
Now, obviously, we haven't seen how he's moving as far as the cuts and the agility goes, but he's never been one of those guys who needs his agility ability to find the hole.
Yeah.
So I don't want to have a super high expectation for Nick Chubb. I just want him to take it easy and just when he's ready, he'll let us know.
If you had to pick a week, when do you think we see Nick Chubb on the field?
I say week 2 is minimum. Like I don't think we go a whole month, but I think week 2, week 3 is probably the sweet spot. I would imagine they come out week 1 and we'd see a lot of different guys in the backfield. I think Ford probably like a 3-back split where they
Yeah.
each get 8, 9 touches, and they see how that works out to see what they need to alter. But if Deshaun Watson comes out and throws for 300 plus yards and offense is airing it out, they're gonna maybe be like, oh, he maybe another rehab or they got to drain some fluid or something to just
Yeah.
prolong the process so it can fully be healthy in my eyes.
Absolutely. I don't think it's a matter of how soon we see him. Like I truly wouldn't be shocked if we saw him week 1. It's just a matter of how much. Interestingly enough, I was looking at Jonathan Taylor's numbers yesterday, and that was probably, at least recently, the most comparable situation to Nick Chubb's because he got injured pretty seriously around when camp started. So there was so much uncertainty. You didn't know. It took him almost a month to get back into a full workload, a month from the beginning of the season, so 4 weeks, to get back into a full workload. Obviously, his was an ankle and Nick Chubb's is a knee, and Nick Chubb's is more serious, soft tissue, longer recovery period. But I'm fascinated to see when the Browns start to ease Nick Chubb in, what does the pitch count look like? How often is he getting the ball? And when eventually, because it's going to come down the line, when does he get a full workload? Because I feel comfortable with Jerome Ford too. I feel comfortable with Deontay Foreman. I know we talked about Pierre Strong. I'm a huge Nyheim Hines guy. I don't know if they're going to use him outside of special teams, but if they did, I think he could have a huge role in third downs. But they're not Nick Chubb when they're healthy. Like, that's a difference maker on the ground, and you can have a two-way football team through the air and on the ground with a premier running back, and if Deshaun Watson's playing well, a premier quarterback with some really good weapons around him. Like, those are difference makers offensively, and that defense is really good. We know that they can keep teams in games, but you don't have to keep an offense like the Browns in the game if they're firing on all cylinders, because they'll be scoring 28 a game.
I mean, we were scoring 22 a game last year, 23 and a half,
Yeah.
something like that last year. I think as far as the full workload goes for Nick Chubb, I think we've kind of seen it in the foreshadow a little bit, where he's getting like 15, 16 touches a game because us as fans are sitting here like, why is he not getting 20 plus touches a
Yeah.
game? And I think they were slowly etching that in there, and it wouldn't be unlikely if we look over to the to the box score and see Chubb go 12 carries for 78, 90 yards. You know what I mean? Something
Yeah.
along that area, and we look like, dang, why aren't we running the ball? I think with Ken Dorsey coming in, and the injury, you mix everything together. We have to damper our expectation when it comes to the workload with Nick Chubb because we're not going to get 20 plus carries of Nick Chubb anymore.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't know if we'll ever see it, especially because obviously the injury, but the way the NFL running back world is moving now, like you have more and more backfields that are going by committee. You have more two-headed monsters, three-headed monsters in the backfield. You don't want to you want to prolong the careers of these elite running backs. I think the best example of this, and I don't know what it's going to look like this year, but it's going to be within the division, is going to be the Baltimore Ravens, because they bring in Derrick Henry and they have a workhorse running back. Keaton Mitchell behind him is really, really good. I mean, we saw it. Like, he's ridiculous. It's going to be a backfield where I don't know if it's going to be evenly split, but it's going to be pretty close. And I think, traditional Derrick Henry fans have seen in the past, he'll get 25 carries a game. I think that world is gone. I'm fascinated to see what the Niners do with Christian McCaffrey because he's older and they just extended him. Like, I'm with you. I think that world in the NFL is just slowly going away, but we will wait to see. about Nick Chubb and the Cleveland Browns. At the end of the day, it's going to come down to a lot of different things with the Cleveland Browns offense. But one thing that kind of gets pushed to the side because it's not easy to talk about is the offensive line. And that for me was a huge talking point last year. It's the biggest thing I'm looking at going into camp this year because there's just so many question marks. And the question marks are good question marks. They are good issues to have. I mean, interior wise, if your guards stay healthy, you got a pretty good interior. I'm not worried about that too much, at least. It's the tackles, though. Like, what does that look like? What are we going to see there?
Well, it's funny because I know we're gonna talk about players to watch and stuff like that later, but I think Jedrick Wills is a key piece here, man. I think we are just kind of just disregarding him and almost forgetting about him. Was he the best? Has he ever been the best? No, we can. I think everybody as a whole can collectively say that.
Yeah.
But he's a piece that you can't just not look at and be like, man, he can help this football team. Basically, is what I'm saying. And everybody's like to talk about the draft and the first round draft picks, and we finally have a first round draft pick next year.
Yeah.
Deshaun Watson plays the way that that we want him to. Offense looks good. I think Andrew Berry can always find a receiver to, whether it be through trade or through free agency. I wouldn't be surprised if they go lineman. It feels like it's almost that time where the Browns are due to draft themselves a lineman in the first round. So this is a big year for Jedrick Wills, and we've seen what DeJuan Jones can do. We've seen his motor, and I think my biggest thing with Jedrick Wills was just his motor. And I think when you lose something that you supposedly love, which is the game of football, and you've had all of these naysayers come out and say all of these things about you, maybe it's just what he needed to give this motor a jump start, and we see a different side of Jedrick Wills. Because if Jedrick Wills can come out and seal up this left side, there'll be no more conversations about trying to move DeJuan Jones over to the left side. Jack Conklin, you can try to move on from him. Obviously, the contract situation would be iffy in that situation, but you'd be solidified at your tackle position because you could just re-sign Jedrick Wills. It was always been a motor thing, never a skill issue.
Interesting. That is a great point. I just looked it up. He's 25 years old. Like, that's insane. The better part of an offensive lineman's career is still ahead of him. It's not even like, oh, he's halfway through his career. No, like, he's 25 years old. He's got so much potential. And like you talked about, like there's little things he can fix. I am really fascinated to see because I do think DeJuan Jones is going to be a part of it. I honestly, truly, as a fan, would almost be upset if he wasn't. Like that, he is an unbelievable talent. The sky is the limit for him. Like that's a game-changing tackle. Even if he doesn't make the switch over to left tackle, like that is a game-changing right tackle. You need both sides at the end of the day. I'm really fascinated to see who plays left tackle because you have Jack Conklin, you have DeJuan Jones, and you have Jedrick Wills, and you got two players who are playing the same position. Somebody's going to have to move if you don't feel comfortable with Jedrick Wills at left tackle. But I think DeJuan Jones has to be part of it. I think you're leaning into a guy who, again, is not getting paid a lot of money. He was a fourth-round pick? Like, he's not getting paid a lot. You lean into that. And, maybe he down the line, I don't want to look too far forward, asks for an extension in 2 years if he's playing well, fine, whatever it may be. But lean into the young guy, lean into the guy who's playing really well. I've said it all offseason, and I still feel like Jack Conklin's the odd man out. Like, financially, got to figure out something to do with it, whether it's a trade, pushing some guaranteed money up and cutting. Like, I don't know what it's going to look like.
Well, let me ask you this then. What if let's play a little game real quick.
All right.
We know Andrew Berry likes to try to finesse and get some draft picks, capital, move things around. Do we think DeJuan Jones is athletic enough to move over to the left side? I think that's the biggest question because that's always been the question when you're moving from right to left side.
I think so. And I the only thing that's hindering me from saying 100% move DeJuan Jones over is the offensive line coach change. That's the only thing that's in the back of my mind.
Okay, but Jedrick Wills was originally a right tackle, was he not?
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
So what if they do like how far along is Jack Conklin on his injury? Is he ready to be back?
It sounds like it, yeah.
And Wills is obviously ready to be back as well.
Yeah.
So what if they played this shuffle game, right? And Wills goes over to the right side. Maybe he performs a little bit better than Conklin, or Conklin performs. And now you're considering like, hey, we've got two right tackles, or Jedrick Wills has played left and tackle. Now you're talking about a potential trade situation Later down the road, don't forget you've got 4 quarterbacks that one of them can easily be trade bait. There's some moves that could potentially happen, and I wouldn't be opposed if we want to try to move DeJuan Jones over to the left side, put Jed back at his original spot. Maybe it'll spark something. Maybe it
Yeah.
will.
Yeah, I think that is a super, super valid thing. And I think honestly it can't because I mean, even DeJuan Jones, like coming back from an injury, like they're going to have 3 tackles coming back from an injury. Obviously, some are farther along than others. Some will be healthier than others. Will it get to a point where you want to give a tackle a pitch count? And as you say, hey, okay, like, hey, go play half the snaps today at left tackle. You give, let's say you say that to DeJuan Jones. Go play half the snaps at left tackle. Jedrick Wills, you're going to take the other half the snaps that Jack Conklin is not going to take at right tackle. So you're going to be playing left and right half and half today. I think that could happen. Like, I think, one, it's a mental challenge for players. Like, I think coaches can do things like that to mentally challenge players. But 2, like, you got to figure out the best 5 guys. Not even the best 5. It's the best 2 tackles. It's the best 2 guys, because I did think about a potential shift inside for one of these guys, but it would be too hard. You'd have, like, the odd man out would then be Postage, and, like, you don't want somebody to learn the center position in the offseason. That's really tough. Like, it's really difficult to shift somebody inside. So you're trying to find the best 2 guys, the best 2 tackles, and you got to exhaust all options. And I'm really fascinated to see what Andy Dickerson, the new offensive line coach, does, how he handles it, because Bill Callahan had been there for so long and was doing such a great job and really had gotten the best out of a lot of players. And DeJuan Jones was probably the prime example, but I'm fascinated to see what that looks like at the tackle position.
Well, you mentioned moving in and stuff like that. I think what we aren't really paying attention to, because there's so many other things to pay attention to. Joel's going to be retiring pretty soon. So
Yeah.
there's going to be a guard position that needs to be filled that has been solidified for, well over a decade.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing to look at. I don't want to think about it now. Obviously, we got some time for that, but that is something to pay attention to, because we could be talking about Joe retiring next year.
Yeah. And you know
He's
what?
hinted at it.
Yeah. And it's super real. The main thing I want to say about that, and I think Browns fans can operate along the same lines as us in not really worrying about that. 1, I don't know if it's going to happen. It's too far in the future to tell. But 2, we can't forget about the Zach Zinter draft pick. Like, if he's healthy, that's a first-round guard. And the Browns got him. I can't remember what pick it was, but they drafted him later on. It's day 2.
You're right. 4th, I think, right?
Yeah. Regardless, he is a talented player. And to be honest with you, the only logical explanation I could have for that pick was that's the Joel Bitonio replacement. And he's really good. So I think if there was a shift that needed to happen inside, if Bitonio's out, I think Zinter goes in. We wait to see that. There's free agency drafts that come down the line too. You never really know. But that is a really good point. So before we move on to the defense, week 1 starting offensive line, give me your prediction.
Wills, Joel, Posick, Teller, Jones. I think Conklin, I just don't. He's insurance at this point, a very expensive insurance policy.
What are they going to do to get rid of the insurance policy? That's my thing. I'm just like, what do they do?
Are you benching Jones? You're putting Conklin over Jones?
No, I could not bench DeJuan Jones if I was a coach. I couldn't do it.
I think this is going to be one of the more interesting preseasons for the trenches, man. Because and we'll talk about him later. Michael Hall.
Yeah.
It's for both sides of the ball. There's going to be a mix up from this year to next year, and it's who's going to be the people out, who's going to make the cut. It's so weird being a Browns fan, being like, dang, you may not make it because we've got too many positions. You know what I mean? Like, it's so weird being on this side of the ball, man.
Yeah, it is very weird. I'm going to agree with your offensive line from the right over. So Conklin, 3 interior. I think DeJuan Jones starts at left tackle. I think Wills is still on the roster. I don't think they do anything with him. He's kind of the gadget guy, the 6th guy in. But I think DeJuan Jones does make the switch. I'm fascinated to see how they go about it in the offseason, what that looks like during training camp. But I think he's talented enough to do it. I think the Browns realize the potential they have there too. So I think if he's talented enough and the Browns try, it will work out. Maybe there's some growing pains, but I trust him to make the switch.
Just imagine you got the Iron Man, Joe Thomas, transitioning into Big Thanos for the left tackle of our next 10 years. It's a
Yep.
beautiful transition, man.
It would be. It would be. And it'd be really, really nice to see.
It would.
But that is one side of the ball at the end of the day. And even though the defense does have significantly less questions, there are still a couple. And one of the questions I was really, really focused on, and I know, Zay, you're a huge fan of him. Ohio people have known Ronnie Hickman for a while, playing at Ohio State. Like, I think about the Browns secondary, and I think it's really good. I think it is an elite unit in the NFL. But I have to ask the question, does Ronnie Hickman have a chance to unseat somebody like Juan Thornhill, Grant Delpit as an every down safety?
So when you first sent it to me and I didn't really look at it, I was like, could he potentially, maybe? But then as I look deeper into it, no, I don't think he has that ability. Number one being, you've paid both of these guys. They should come in and make a difference no matter what. And I also think that we're forgetting the guy who's above Ronnie Hickman on the depth chart. The only reason why Ronnie Hickman got any play was because we were so depleted at that position.
Yeah.
Rodney McLeod is still on this team, a
Yeah.
veteran, a Super Bowl player who's been there before, who's a veteran in this locker room, who is a true leader, D'Anthony Bell told us about. And I think him being third on the depth chart, it's going to take more injuries. It's going to take terrible play from Juwan Thornhill and Grant Delpit and Rodney McLeod in order for him to even get there. I think he plays good in certain packages and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But as far as him coming in and being an every down guy, I think there's a guy you can look at that could potentially be more of a factor, and that's D'Anthony Bell.
Mhm.
He's I would say he's higher up on the depth chart. I think I was looking at one of the depth charts, and he's gotten better every time he stepped up on the field too when asked. So I just don't see Ronnie Hickman making that jump yet. Now, when we talk about next year, I think it's a different story because McLeod has already told us that this is probably his last year. And then Juan Thornhill, I believe, is coming up on another contract as well. So there'll be some conversations there, but not this year.
Interesting. I'm with you in the sense that he doesn't. There's two things. One, he doesn't have the talent to play like at least Grant Delpit, I think, because I think there is. I know Juan Thornhill's won a Super Bowl. He's been a lot of places. He's done a lot of really good things. From what I've seen Grant Delpit do at his best, it's Thornhill here, Delpit here. Like, I think Delpit is the better of the two safeties, and I think it's noticeable. I don't think it's a crazy difference, but I do think it's noticeable. So when I asked that question, I thought, Juan Thornhill, can Ronnie Hickman really provide what Thornhill does in the run game? That was my big thing. And I think if it was the other way around, and Grant Delpit, again, who can do a lot of good things in the run game, but is more the true coverage guy, I'm like, well, if Delpit was worse than Thornhill, like if Thornhill was this truly elite talent and Delpit was the lesser of the two safety pair, like, yes, I could see Hickman coming in. I think he's just that good in coverage. But he's got to have a lot of help in the run game. And I don't know if he can do that. I think sub package, it's awesome. I honestly think at his best, he can provide more than a lot of other safeties on the roster. Honestly, outside of the two starting safeties, like I think he's that good. But it's a sub package thing. I'm with you. It's really difficult to find a home for an every down safety who is really, really good at one thing, but can't offer as much as another safety in another aspect, the run game, like Juan Thornhill can. So I think it's tough. I think he's going to be a mainstay in the sub packages, though. Like, I think when you get into that dime personnel, if you're going to have 6 DBs out there, he's probably going to be the sixth, at least I think. I think McLeod offered some good things last year. I think at his best, with another year of experience under his belt, I think Hickman is the sixth best DB. If you want to put somebody in that package, obviously it's a week by week thing, what you like, what you don't like against a certain opponent. But I think Hickman will find a more steady role, even if everybo's healthier.
I just wanted to circle back on the Juan Thornhill thing. I think, we forgot that he played injured a lot. But one thing that he brought that was infectious to the whole locker room was just his attitude.
Yeah.
He was a sound leader from the very beginning. He put on the Cleveland Browns uniform.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that can be overlooked. I think Jim Schwartz in the defensive side of the ball value things of that, which is why they brought in a guy like Jordan Hicks, who's been in the system, and why they're keeping Rodney McLeod and why he's willing to retire a Brown for these specific reasons. I think the chemistry that he meshes very well with the aura of this team.
Yeah.
And I think Ronnie Hickman is just a little bit too young to fulfill that duty yet. That comes with experience, that comes with
Yeah.
time. Not saying that he can't get there, but that's why I'm going to give Juan Thornhill that edge, even though we know Grant Delpit, I think, like you said, is a better safety than him.
Yeah. No, I think we're on the same page. I think we understand the potential with Hickman. It's just a matter of when. I'm
Mhm.
ready for it now. I think you're more realistic in the sense that we got veteran leaders. Let's see how that plays out. Let's see the impact the leaders have on him so he
Mhm.
can do that down the line. But I think we're on the same page. That's a big talent. And again, we talk about it with the tackle situation. We'll talk about it with the defensive line. We talk about Michael Hall Jr. Like, these are good problems to have. These are very, very good problems to have. Depth pieces. And again, when was a point where you're like, I don't know how many guys are going to be on the active roster at this position because there are just too many good ones. Like, that's crazy.
You know, I don't know if I'm getting ahead of ourselves, but you keep bringing up things for all the players to watch and stuff like that. There's one guy on my list. Can I just give it to you now? You want me to wait?
Is he on the defensive side of the ball?
He's not.
Let's
But
wait. Let's talk Michael Hall for a
er,
couple minutes.
is there one on the defense? There is one on the defense. I do have one on the defense, and I
Let's hit it then.
mentioned him.
Let's do defense.
So I mentioned Jordan Hicks. I think he's one guy to watch because he's not getting a lot of pub for a
Mm,
veteran. I think he's got 4 straight seasons with 100 plus tackles. Has played with Jim Schwartz in the Super Bowl. Devin Bush.
yeah.
You know, I was looking through some of these Steeler forums and seeing what they were saying about Devin Bush, and you can't find a single, I kid you not, you can't find one single good thing that they
Nope.
have to say about Devin Bush.
Crazy.
And a lot of it goes to motor, his will, his wanting to tackle, his wanting to be out on the field. And I think when you talk about Devin Bush and this defense and how he can bring value, it's Jim Schwartz. If
Yes.
any, he requires effort. He requires you to be present. Like, if you're not going to be on this team. And if anybody can get out the potential of a first round pick where the Steelers traded up to get this guy, it's gonna be a team now who, it's weird to say, the Browns are having a history of getting talent that has not exceeded to their position and now
Mhm.
bringing them in and tapping into it and getting the most out of them. And I think Devin Bush could be one of those guys, because everyone has nothing but negative things to say about him.
Which is crazy. I've also noticed the same thing. And he was one of my guys I was totally looking at too. I also think the Jim Schwartz edge is not even it's partially Jim Schwartz, but it's partially how good this Browns defense is on first down. Like, that so many times the opposing offense will be behind the chains and you can get into whatever personnel groups you want. Like, Devin Bush, in my mind, is not going to be asked to be an every down linebacker. He's not going to be. Like, maybe
Go
there'll
out
be
there and
some
make a
sub
tackle. Go
packages.
make a play.
Yeah,
That's what I
exactly.
think.
And then when you get into not even second long, the third down situations where the Browns get into those sub packages where they can take a defensive tackle on the field, they can bring in Obo Okoronkwo to rush. Like, I don't think he's going to be out there. Like, I think there will be a lot of situations where they get into a dime package. There's 6 DBs on the field. You got 3 rushers, a speed defensive tackle, and then JOK. Like, I think that's the ideal personnel for a third down situation. I don't think Bush is going to be asked to be out there, at least not often. Like, I don't think he's going to have to be an every down linebacker. And whether he embraces that role or not is up to him, but it's also up to the defensive culture, and I trust in that. But I don't think he's going to be asked to be an every down linebacker. Same with Hicks. Like, I don't think those guys are going to be signing up for all the snaps that a guy like JOK is going to get. And I think it's going to help him. I think it's going to help him a lot if they have a more defined role.
It's going to be beautiful to see because we've seen how, I don't want to say dumbified, but how simplified the defense was last
Yeah.
year. Pin the ears back, go back and make a play. If Devin Bush isn't going out and making the play, at the very least, stay home and force them back to your help. And
Yeah.
I think that, like I was saying, I was reading through the forums and it was like he could be there, but he could never make the tackle, or he was coming behind and making tackles, but never really showing you the effort. If he can just come in and have an effect on a hole or a
Yeah.
gap, or a zone read or something of that nature where it can force back into your playmakers, JOK, Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward, Grant Delpit, he's servicing you everything that you need. So I don't need him to come out here and get 100 plus tackles. Just be home and do what's asked. Pin your ears back.
Exactly. And two things. One, when you watch the Browns defense play, it's really clear to see they play fast and they just fly around. So impacting a play, like you said, doesn't have to be making a TFL. It can be slowing a runner down, making a runner think, whatever it may be. Like your help is going to be there. But two, it's like the fact that the Browns are playing so fast and doing so many good things defensively is so good for such an athletic defense. For guys like Myles Garrett, for guys like Obo Okoronkwo, JOK, they have to think less. They can just go pull the trigger, go make a tackle, pull the trigger, go execute your pass rush move, like whatever it may be. That is such an advantage for an athletically gifted defense like the Browns have, and Devin Bush fits right into that mold. He fits right into that mold, and I think it's going to be awesome to see. And like the reality is, I know the Browns fans talk about how good their offseason was and how much we loved all the moves. We still lost Sione Takitaki. Like that's still a decent size loss. And he played well last year. So somebody's going to have to fill the shoes. I think Devin Bush can do a good job.
Man, a lot of people aren't talking about the Takitaki miss. That one hurt. He wasn't this big guy that went out there and made and jumped out to you on the tape, but he got better every year he was on this team, if you ask me. And he survived a lot of the regime. He was here for some stretchy patches, and he still made plays. He's interception in the playoff. Didn't he have an interception in the playoff game? Or am I thinking of a different game against the Steelers?
I think he did. I think he did.
I mean, he had some.
There were a lot of them. There were
a lot of them, and it's just like you hopefully you can like you said, Devin Bush can replace that, or Jordan Hicks can replace that, because I think it will be missed.
Yeah, I think so too. Let's move down the line on the defense. I know we want to talk about Michael Hall Jr., where he fits in, but I want to talk about my big player, my player to watch. And it's less with training camp, more just during the year. But Mo Hurst, like I think he is truly one of the best interior run defenders in the NFL. Like I think Dalvin Tomlinson and obviously the guys on the edge make his life a lot easier, but he does not lose a lot of one-on-ones. And the reality with the Browns defense is he's going to get a lot of one-on-ones. People are going to be worried about Dalvin Tomlinson, Myles Garrett, whoever it may be. That's a guy I think that can make a huge impact in your run game. And again, he's not going to be asked to be an every down guy. He seems like at least has very, very much accepted the role that he has as a two down lineman, as somebody who's going to go out there with Dalvin Tomlinson, maybe get subbed off in the sub package looks. But he's accepted and embraced that role. He's very good at it, and he adds so much value. One thing I always talk about, just general defensive football, like second down is the most important down, at least in my mind, in the play of a football game, the run of a game. You can make or break your drive. You can make or break your series of plays. Having a guy like that out there who can do different things, he can get after the quarterback, but is also so good in the run, makes second down so difficult for offenses. And I mean, especially if you're playing the Browns, if you get behind the chains on third down, like good luck. You're not converting that.
I'm interested to see where they go with the contract situation with him, because isn't he on a 1-year deal this year?
Yeah, he's on a 1-year deal.
He comes out and does exactly what you're preaching about, man. He's going to want some money. It's just I'm anxious to see how it all meshes come the end of the year, because this could be the last ride we see with all of these guys, and the chemistry that everyone has, from the defensive line to the linebackers to the corner room. That's just talking about the defensive side of the ball. We know how tight the offensive side of the ball is. I almost feel like it feels like it's destiny. Like something has to happen. He has to take less money. Stay with us, Mo.
Yeah.
Please.
Somebody's going to have to do it. A couple people are probably going to have to do it.
And I don't know if JOK is going to be one of them. He got to get the bag.
He will. And I think, honestly, the Browns they understand that. I think they will not be afraid to pay him. It's just a matter of timing. But let's talk about Michael Hall Jr., because that's a guy who could fill those shoes if the contract situation doesn't work out. Obviously, the Browns go 8-ish deep with their defensive line. How often do we see Michael Hall Jr.? I mean, he was the first guy the Browns took off the board this year. They have a lot of praise for him. Only good things from what I understand. Again, another Buckeye. What do we think we see from Michael Hall Jr.? Because in my opinion, He's not going to get out there, at least in the first year, with that first team defensive line, but it doesn't really matter because they go that deep. Does he consistently get out there with the second team defensive line? What do you think?
I think it's gonna be one of those things where, like you said, we shouldn't see a lot of him this year. I think Shelby Harris, Miles, and Ogbo, and all those guys, they got this on lock. But I think, why not sprinkle him in on some of those fun second downs, on those third downs? See what type of a game guy he is. Is he a game wrecker? Is he going to show out on the tape on these downs that mean something? And we know how Jim Schwartz is. Hey, he may throw him out here on a little week to week. Maybe we see 1 week where he's got 30 snaps, and the next week he has 3 snaps. Like,
Yeah.
Jim Schwartz is that type of wild card where we could possibly see Michael Hall at any point in time.
Yeah, it's an advantage for sure too, because I think back to, I mean, it's tough to compare anybody to the Patriots dynasty, but I think back to what the Patriots did for so long. Like, they were so deep and had so many players that could do so many different things. Nobody was ever pigeonholed into getting 60 snaps a game unless your name was Tom Brady or Rob Gronkowski. Like, you played the players that matched up against the team the best, and they made their impact the best, and they continue to win games. So I think when you look at the Browns defense in general, but defensive line, they got so many pieces that they can do that with. You don't always need to put a guy like Shelby Harris or Mo Hurst out there for 60 snaps a game when you have that depth. And who knows, maybe Mike Hall is better at certain things than those other guys are. Maybe they want to put him out there against certain types of teams, whatever that may be. We wait to see, but I'm with you. I think that we probably won't see him as much as a second round. We would expect to see a second round pick, but it's not like a fault of his own, right? It's just that defensive line is so good. They're so deep. But down the line, that could absolutely be a filler for not just Mo Hurst, but Shelby Harris, because he's getting a little bit older. Somebody's going to go pretty soon along that defensive line, especially the interior. And I think Mike Hall will fill the shoes. And I think he'll fill them nicely. I mean, I saw some very, very good things at Ohio State. So we are both looking at defensive players. Are there any offensive players you also have your eyes on?
I have one that's going to surprise a lot of people, because my big question is, how is he still on the roster? Not necessarily why, but how. Because like we said, there's so much talent, and at this one position where a lot of people don't think there's a lot of talent, but there's enough to have this question, as the receiver position. Michael Woods. I don't know what it is, but he's still around. You still see like clips of him catching passes, and it's almost like, is he a secret weapon that they're kind of sitting on that they don't want to talk about? Like, how is he still getting like the roster nod when you got Bell, Cedric Tillman, and then obviously Moore, Cooper, and those guys? Like, something has to be brewing there. He obviously was battling injuries, but I'm watching Michael Woods because there's got to be something to him that they're not talking about, or that we're not seeing.
Yeah, especially now you look at a guy they drafted, Jamari Thrash, too. Like,
Forgot about him.
It's another, like, that. Looking at their receiver room right now, like, that's 7-ish, 8-ish guys that are like, well, you can't keep all of them. Somebody's gonna have to go. I'm fascinated to see if Woods makes the roster, because it kind of depends on what the Browns see with their personnel. But you think you probably keep 7 receivers. You don't know, but probably 7. And I mean, obviously, you have the 3 starters. You have David Bell, who I think has a pretty safe spot. Cedric Tillman has a pretty safe spot. Would be shocked if Thrash didn't make it, especially after being drafted. Like, who's going to be the 7th? Do they keep Prochet?
So I saw, I didn't read it because it was a couple days old, and Heavy on Browns kind of has some weary stuff. But the article was talking about Elijah Moore potentially being traded. So I don't know if that's something that we should be looking at. I feel like he's been in the mix a lot with, as far as Deshaun Watson goes. He was at the charity game. Usually when you see that, it never feels like that's part of the equation. But we haven't talked about the Amari Cooper situation. And when you sign Dustin Hopkins, I just want people to prepare themselves. Amari Cooper's probably not getting paid the way that it's looking. So that brings me back to Elijah Moore. Could he potentially be a trade bait? Like, it doesn't make sense, honestly.
I think it'd be a different story if Amari Cooper was confident. Like, the Browns were confident they could bring Amari Cooper back. I'd like, logistically, you lose a lot of talent in your receiver. You lose a lot of talent on your offense, just what you can do offensively if you lose Elijah Moore to a trade and then you lose Cooper, let's just say next year, to whatever it may be. I'd be shocked if they did it, and they did it understanding they would lose Amari Cooper. Like, I feel like if they lost both of those, unless they really believe in Cedric Tillman, that'd be a bad idea.
I think I think Cedric Tillman has potential to be a number one. I
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
and I'm a big Andrew Berry guy, and how he's laid out this plan, you clearly see the picture. If you
Yep.
can't see it, you're a hater. But he's always hedging his bets, and something tells me, like, it's been in his DNA. They don't pay receivers. It's they pay Jared Judy. That was your receiver contract for the year.
Yep.
So everyone keeps saying go and pay Cooper. It doesn't make sense, like you say, logistically. I want them to, but in the analytical department, they've shown us that they're not going to go out and spend that type of money on receivers.
Yeah.
Jerry Judy was that guy. So my thing is, I think Cedric Tillman is is probably the guy to take over the Amari Cooper role,
Mm.
man. Personally, that's what it feels like. You got Amari Cooper, you already paid Judy, you got Thrash, and you got your younger guys in Bells. They're going to continue to keep that receiver money as tight as it can possibly be, so they can go out and spend. Myles Garrett's going to come up on another contract. We haven't talked about the uncomfortable conversation where as Nick Chubb performs, is he going to get paid again? So there's a lot of money issues that come into play, and receiver has never been 1A or 1B or B or C on their list when it comes to paying guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also do think that the logical transition between or from Cooper to Cedric Tillman, if that were to happen, makes a lot of sense because the Browns don't have a more physically imposing guy on their roster outside, or receiver on their roster, excuse me, outside of Tillman and Cooper. Like, the Jerry Judy is absolutely can be an X where you line him up one-on-one outside and he can go win. But when you talk about physically imposing, like I can come down and crack a linebacker. I can go win one-on-one on the outside. I can beat you. I'm taller than you. I can jump higher than you. Like, that's Cooper and that's Cedric Tillman. So the Browns have a lot of quicker slot guys on their roster, and it's all well and good. I think it fits the Ken Dorsey scheme really well. But I'm with you. I don't think Amari Cooper is going to get paid. It's sad to see, but I don't think he's going to get paid. I think this might be the swan song. We won't look too far forward into that because it's a lot of hypotheticals. But
Yep.
I look at that receiver room again, and a guy that sticks out to me is James Prochet, but not for the reasons of him contributing, making the roster, but
Special teams.
yeah, and that's my thing. Like, I'll say it quick. The player I'm looking at least offensively, like, just to see what his role is Jordan Akins, because you lose a guy like Harrison Bryant, who played a decent amount of snaps, was a good blocker, gave you a little bit in the receiving game. Akins will give you a lot more in the receiving game, and I'm fascinated to see what that's going to look like. But can he step in and block like a number 2 tight end? We wait to see. But the player that I think is going to surprise some people, and we'll talk about yours in a few minutes, is Nyheim Hines. Like, that's a guy I've had my eyes on all offseason. I think as a true third down back, you lose Kareem Hunt. You need somebody else to come in, pass protect, and catch the football. Ford can do it. Foreman can do it. They can't do it as well as Nyheim Hines can. I think Nyheim Hines can offer you a lot in the return game, whether that be kickoffs, which we know he's been very good at.
Yep.
I think he could punt return too. So if you're the Browns, you want to cut a spot at receiver, whether that's, bringing Michael Woods in, bring a guy like Jalen Darden in as well. That's another name we didn't really talk about. That being your 7th guy, you want to cut Prochet. You have the special teams help. That's my thing. And I think when Nyheim Hines gets the opportunities, he's going to be really good because he's a lot quicker than a lot of people out there. He's very, very savvy in the receiving game. He's been a very good third down back for a while. He can provide a lot of value for an offense. And honestly, it's a type of running back the Browns don't have because Foreman's more of a workhorse guy. Chubb is obviously more of a workhorse guy. Ford can do a lot of things, but nothing sticks out as like, this is Jerome Ford's thing. Nyheim Hines is a third down running back who can add value in the receiving game. I think he's going to surprise a lot of people.
Nyheim Hines is exactly who they wanted Demetric Felton to be.
Absolutely. Yep.
So, and then you can you throw that in the fact of the special teams. I'm excited to see Nyheim Hines.
Yeah.
I would say, The player that's going to surprise people the most, I think there's only one answer truly to this, and
Let's
it's
hear it.
Deshaun Watson.
Mm,
No one has an expectation for Deshaun Watson to do anything remotely good. So when he does come out, it's going to be a surprise to a lot of people. And they're going to act like it's not going to be a surprise. They're going to be like, well, he's supposed to do this. We were expecting. No, you weren't expecting
no,
him to do
yeah,
this. Everyone was counting him out. Everyone thought he was a bust when we paid him the $230 million. He's washed. He can't do it. The injuries is this. All he has to do is come out and have a couple consecutive 300-yard games, and it's going to surprise everybody in the building. So I think that's the biggest who's going to surprise people. It's four.
yeah. That is the best way to put it, because I think the expectations that were placed on him were reasonable at the time when he signed with the Browns, signed that enormous deal.
Mm-hmm.
But now, like you look at him 2 years, and there's been a lot of things that have gone wrong. Obviously, we've talked about that. There to truly expect him to go back to that form is a little bit foolish. Like you don't know if that's going to happen. You haven't seen it for a couple of years, so expectations are low. By default, if he plays well, yeah, you're gonna surprise people with low expectations. I'm with you for sure.
So and then the other guy that we touched on for a second, pause. Cedric Tillman. I
Yeah,
just think what I seen when he hit that crackback block, I think it was against the Steelers. I'm like, oh, this dude is every bit of AFC North. He is the George Pickens on our team. He is the Anquan Bolden when he was on
yeah.
the Ravens. Like he is going to be an imposer, an enforcer, and I just think he's going to be one of those guys that you look at and be like, dang, he's sticking out on the highlights every week. Something. Cedric Tillman's going to be my surprise.
Love it. Love it. And I mean, if he can fill in that role, I mean, obviously we saw last year the Browns receiver core was a little bit battered and bruised as the season went on, different injuries to different players at different times, and they obviously didn't have Jerry Jeudy. So we'll see where the every down role comes in, and if it even comes in. But Cedric Tillman will continue to make the most of his reps, especially if he's going to get matched up against smaller, honestly inferior. I wasn't going to say it, but inferior
Right.
guys. Like he's a very good player. I'm fascinated to see how that goes. Before we end, the prediction I want us to make, we've talked about this numerous times. 3 quarterbacks on the Browns roster come, let's say September 1st. I don't know when the exact cut date is. Who are they?
I forgot who I said in the last one. I hope it's the same ones. We're gonna go Watson, Winston. This is where it gets tough, man.
Yeah. I'm with you on the first two. Absolutely.
I think. Okay, answer me this question before I give you the third. If
Yeah.
they put a guy on practice squad, do they go through a waiver period where someone else can claim them?
Yes.
Yikes.
And that's going to happen.
So Huntley.
Okay. I
I
think
think
it's going to be. Oh, so wait. So you think DTR goes practice squad?
I think DTR could make it through the cracks easier than if Tyler Huntley were to hit the free agent market. And if he were to go through waivers, especially with how the quarterback market is and people getting injured every other snap, like people could look at Tyler Huntley and be like, well, we should probably get him off waivers.
Yeah. I think absolutely Watson, Winston. I think the Browns trade Tyler Huntley.
I
I've been
see
on that
that.
train since April. I think they find a way to do it.
But I mean, so you got your money set on like one of those side bets on the crap tables, like say Yo 11, like someone's getting injured and they're trading.
I don't. It's not exclusively somebody getting injured. I think training camp you can figure out how good your backups are. Like I think if there's a team that realizes our backup is not where it needs to be, they'll go trade for somebody. And I think that could happen. That'll happen easier than somebody gets injured. God forbid anybody gets injured, but that'll happen easier than somebody gets injured. Like I think I'm trying
What
to
are
think
you
of a team.
what are you getting for him then?
It would probably be a day 3 pick, but I think the Browns would take it in a heartbeat if they want to get rid of a quarterback.
So day 3, you're thinking like 5th, 6th?
Probably a 5th. I'm trying to think of teams off the top of my head who could use it though. Like that's like the inferior backup quarterbacks probably in the NFC. Like who's
The
right
Saints,
now?
maybe Saints
Saints.
might make a little sense.
Unless I'm blanking on somebody, I don't know who the Commanders' backup quarterback is.
Is Jacoby still there?
No, he's in New England.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He did go back.
I'll look that up quick. But like the Commanders, especially because you have Jaden Daniels coming in, you need a veteran presence. Unless I'm forgetting
Where did
somebody.
Howe
Oh,
go?
it's Marcus Mariota. That's who it
Oh,
is.
Murray.
But
Okay.
like, are you? Do you like Marcus Mariota that much more than Tyler Huntley? Like, I think there's a lot of teams who could use. What if Kenny Pickett's really bad? Like, I think there's a lot of teams that could use a backup quarterback.
I mean, I feel you. I just don't see it happening. I think the Browns and Andrew Berry would rather be safe than sorry than to have. I mean, obviously, you're not banking on Winston to get injured either, but
Yeah,
Winston is probably good for about 2 solid good weeks before he gives you 3 interception game,
yeah,
and then you know what I mean. Like, I don't know, man. I hate answering that question because I think it truly is a tough decision when you sit
yeah.
down at the table and it's like, okay, which one of these guys are we going to move on for? So I can see them getting traded for a fifth, though. I would almost rather keep him, man. Is he better than DTR? I mean, is he worse than DTR? That's the question.
Yeah, and at that point, like if you're getting that 5th round pick, like is that where you just take a swing at another quarterback in the next draft too? Like, it's a lot of hypotheticals. But I've been on the train where I think the Browns loaded up at backup quarterback to trade somebody since April. I'm gonna stay on it. I think the more I watch Jameis Winston, the more I see him interact, and we talked about this last time too. Like he's perfect for Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
Tyler Huntley probably fits the scheme better, but if you feel like you can get Jameis Winston in the scheme, he is not going anywhere. Like that's not happening.
And I think the scheme is going to be we're going to see an air it out offense.
Yeah, I
Something
think so.
tells me 4 verticals every drive once. Like, where's our underneath guys? No, they're 40 yards downfield
Yeah.
because we want to sling it out. And that's Winston all day.
Yeah, I think, I mean, just from what I had seen with Ken Dorsey and the Bills, like you're going to pump the ball to an outside guy a lot. You're going to get the ball in somebody's hands a lot. I think it's going to be Jerry Jeudy. Like I think Jerry Judy's going to have a pretty big impact in this offense. I think he's going to not demand a lot of targets in the sense saying like, hey, throw me the ball. Like I think he's going to fit the plays that Ken Dorsey, at least in the past, has liked the most. I think he's very comparable to Stephon Diggs and what he can do. I think that's going to be a nice little home for him. But we wait to see. A lot of hypotheticals. By the time you guys are listening to this, the rookies are currently reporting and training camp will be starting. I believe the first practice is 2 days from now, but veterans will be reporting on the 23rd. Zay, your birthday is the 23rd. Happy early birthday.
Yes, sir. We turned a big 31.
There you go. There you go. Happy early birthday to Zay. If you guys are new and you're not following the socials, make sure you do. It's Honor the Land on Instagram, TikTok. So we appreciate you guys hopping on. We appreciate you guys listening, watching. Leave a like, share it with a friend, leave a 5-star rating. Zay, any final words before we go?
Here we go, Brownies. Here we go.
All right, guys, we appreciate you. See you soon.